Hey, JK here. I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me.
Y'all ready for this?
Welcome back to 30 Teams in 30 Days. We're down to the last 5 days. That means opening day is less than a week away. I'm not going to count the Wednesday game with the Yankees and the Giants, but you get what I'm saying. We are so close. And now we get to go with the best division in baseball, winning-wise. So it's not like I'm just saying it because the Yankees are there. This is the AL East. And the worst team in that division was the Baltimore Orioles. In 2025, they went 75-87. That was a steady decline over the last 3 years since 2023 of wins and runs produced. And in that same time span, they've allowed 100 more runs. So is it bad fielding, bad pitching? Who knows? You would kind of expect the lack of run production because of such a young core. You have tons of guys who have not had much experience at the big league level, but then you kind of would not expect it because of all the hype. Jackson Holliday, Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Jordan Westburg, and the like. They're supposed to be hyped up to be superstars. Speaking of Gunnar Henderson, he led the Orioles in everything except for at-bats and strikeouts, which I went to Jackson Holliday. But Henderson was only 3 strikeouts behind Holliday, so it's not like it was a large margin. And Jackson actually tied Gunnar Henderson for the most home runs, 17. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. There are definitely some reasons why I think the Orioles did so poorly this past year and or lacked the run support and run production for the pitching staff. We'll get to the pitching staff in a minute because that was also all over the place. One of the reasons I think the Orioles had such a poor season was because there were 3 guys tied with 17 home runs, and that was the team lead. There were 8 guys that had at least 11 or more home runs, and there was only 1 guy with 60 RBIs. Behind him, there was only 1 guy with 55 or more RBIs. So you had 2 guys, and that's it, with 55 plus RBIs. The next closest was like 47, 49, something like that. So again, you're not getting runs produced because you're not getting in scoring position. You're not making these timely hits. Speaking of timely hits, there were only 2 guys, the same 2 guys we've been talking about, Holliday and Henderson, with 220 plus total bases. The next closest, 150. That is not a margin to take lightly. That was a 70 total base margin. Gunnar Henderson led it, and then it was Jackson Holliday with 220, and then I think Jordan Westburg had 150. The most concerning piece, in my opinion, was the fact that there were only 2 guys, the same 2, that played in more than 100 games. Now, I think it was Holliday played in like 147, and Henderson played in like 152 or something like that. The next closest, 94. I'm all for, trying to platoon and look and see who has the best option, but at least keeping him in the lineup. Like, for example, I'm a big Helios Ramos fan, but starting him versus like lefties opposed to Jung-Ho Lee against righties, whatever it may be, or maybe it's vice versa. But they go from 1 to 9 or, somewhere down in the bottom of the lineup. They're not completely out of the lineup. But the fact that the guy who played the 3rd most games was only at 94, there are 162 games in the season. What happened to the rest? Like, call up, send downs, platooning like to an extreme, mix and match as far as the matchups, like which is platooning. Like, what's happening? I don't know what it is, but it helped the Yankees win 9 out of the 13 games against them this past year. So we have absolutely been crapping on the Orioles, which I'm not opposed to as a Yankees fan. But was there any positive? Was there anything that an Orioles fan could look at and be like, I'm glad this happened? Yes, there were several that had mixed emotions as well. Jackson Holliday played in more games, so his counting stats went up. Got a little bit more used to the game. First and foremost, played 90 more games, and his batting average went from 189 to 242. Huge increase. That's great. Home runs, 5 to 17. Stolen bases, 4 to 17. 17 home runs and 17 stolen bases. Walks, 15 to 56. He's seeing the ball better. He is. He's figuring out what he needs to do. Maybe not at the same rate or level as his dad, but he's still in his 2nd full year, okay? This is nothing to be worried about, at least not that I'm thinking. I think he's going to be fine. He just needs more time. Speaking of young guys who definitely have room to improve and need to continue to improve, their young catcher, Sam Basallo, absolutely showed there's still time to improve, not to count him out. The 21-year-old did have a 31-game snapshot at the major league level, and he showed it was a first cup of coffee there. 165 batting average. Ooh, God. 30 strikeouts. Ooh, okay. He had 2 errors behind the plate. Okay, it's not bad. Those only threw out 1 guy who was trying to steal. Now, it was 10%, but 1 out of 10, not going to cut it there, man. I mean, that's like Logo no Hoppy numbers, okay? And again, I don't mean to be crapping on him, but that's just the guy we've crapped on several times because of his catching. Something that was good and then it was bad, despite hitting 280 with 13 home runs and then also hitting 290 with 14 or 15 home runs, the Orioles traded both Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano for 6 prospects, none of which in the top 100 for MLB and only 2 in the top 30 for the Baltimore Orioles organization. So, and they weren't even in the top 10. They're like hitting 11 and 14 or something. So if it works out, great. If not, I mean, Ryan O'Hearn was a rental for the Padres. Laureano's still there. So, I mean, if it works out again, good job, Orioles. If it doesn't, you trade away guys that could have continued to help you win more than 75 games. The most positive thing about the Orioles in 2025, and actually did impact me and make me pretty happy because I picked him up off the waiver wire, was the guy later in the season produced in 48 games, Jeremiah Jackson. Multi-position eligibility, not a home run guy, definitely not a steals guy because he had 0 and was caught twice, but he produced 4 home runs, scored 20 times, and then had 21 runs driven in. So over a full season, he is going to hit about 20 home runs. He's going to hit about 70 RBI mark and 70 run mark. So that's not crazy, but get this. Of his 47 hits in the season, 17 were extra base hits. So between doubles, triples, and home runs, 35+% of his hits were extra base hits. If he's hitting the ball, likely third of the time, he is past first base. He is already in scoring position. But this is the craziest part. They have him behind Blaze Alexander, Kobe Mayo, and then, of course, Westberg and Holiday because they start. So I'm going to keep an eye on him as the year goes on, especially early on, because Blaze did not work out in Arizona, and there were openings there. Didn't produce. Kobe Mayo, I think you were hitting like 200 last year. Jackson was hitting 276, multi-position eligibility, and 35+% getting in scoring position on the very first rip, not needing to steal a base. He's just there. But again, I don't get paid millions of dollars to coach. Whoever is, like, I think they got a new manager, so he's getting paid $1 million to put Jeremiah Jackson 4th. As we get to the pitching, I'm going to go ahead and get out. Dean Kramer was recently demoted down to AAA, and he led the team and everything, but only because he was the only one to reach 162 innings pitched. Now let's get to the real point of this pitching rotation, and the fact that this is the point that we're going to make blows my mind. Trevor Rogers. What? In 2021 with the Marlins, so we're not getting a ton of wins, but the production was definitely there. 25 starts, 133 innings, 157 strikeouts, 2.65 ERA with a 1.15 whip. That's pretty good. But then after that, like the next 4 or 5 years, he forgot how to pitch. And I don't understand what the Orioles were thinking. They obviously knew more than we did because they traded for Trevor Rogers. They traded 2 of their best prospects. My boy Connor Norby from ECU. Woo! Woo! And Kyle Stowers. What? If you're the Marlins, you have got to be thinking, like, what are we doing? Why are we getting these 2 prized prospects for this hunk of junk? And after only 4 starts with the Orioles, that's probably what they were thinking too, because Trevor Rogers had a 7.1 ERA. You gave away 2 top prospects. So what happened? I don't know. There was a total 180, and Trevor Rogers was like, I'm going to remember how to pitch. In 2025, Trevor Rogers is nothing like anything you would expect. In 18 starts, he had 109 innings pitched, only 103 strikeouts. Okay, well, here comes the regression. 1.81 ERA. What? 0.9 whip. Huh? 13 quality starts. What? Who is this guy? I'm flabbergasted that he did so well. And that now the Marlins are like, where was this guy? Who is it? Did we send the wrong person? I don't believe it's real. The guy who's coming off a good 2025, even though it was abbreviated because of Tommy John surgery, is Kyle Bradish. He left 2024 with only 8 starts with Tommy John surgery, then came back 2025, had 6 starts, and the numbers were even better. I know they were very, very small sample size, but he is looking forward to a strong and healthy 2026, and I'm looking forward to them not playing the Yankees with him pitching because he seems pretty good. Unless he's like bad, then yeah, let the Yankees hit off. Then we get to the rest of the rotation, which is pretty ugly. They average a 4.6 ERA to a 6.2 ERA and a 1.3 whip to a 1.5 whip. But if you're able to get past the starting pitching and get to the setup men, they were pretty good. They weren't sexy. Their overall numbers weren't great, but they did have decent counting stats, innings pitched, strikeouts per 9. But what got me was the fact that they were 5 guys with double-digit holds. They were absolutely setting Felix Bautista or whoever else was in that position because of injury up for success. Now, the peripherals don't look as great. They had 20 blown saves, and the average bullpen ERA was 4.1, and the whip was 1.4. So, Yunyer Cano absolutely has forgotten how to pitch the last few years. He had the highest. He had a 5+ ERA and a 1.4 whip. So, he did not help the cause. And they did lose a few arms in the bullpen. They did bring in a few, and they're trying to offset some injuries and whatnot. And he recently had another injury. Keegan Aiken got hurt warming up. So, I'm seeing this is another down year for the Orioles. Some of the guys that can help them from having a down season are their prospects. They do have 3 in the top 100. One of them is not close to the big league level, but 2 have already made their debut. Sam Basallo and Dylan Beavers. We already talked about Basallo. Definitely not going to be pushing to get Adley Rutschman out of catcher position, but he is pushing for the DH position. So that could be something for them, especially some of the injuries in the infield. Westberg's going to be out for a little bit. Jackson Holiday, who knows what's going on with him. So Basallo could get some more playing time. Again, only 21. And then Dylan Beavers, he did produce a little bit. He had a 227 batting average. So that could be a little more, but let's make sure we get him in the position that he is going to be best in, which is going to be the outfield. Again, young team, lots of room to develop. I just don't know if it's going to be this year. As we get to the arrivals and departures, some big names going out, but some really big names coming in. The biggest arrival, Pete Alonso, going to be manning first, going to be shooting for another 30+ home run season, maybe get to 40, and bring Camden Yards to their feet when he gets up with a big bat. Hopefully other people can get on base in front of him. For my sake, I hope they don't, because I don't have any shares of him at this point in time. One of my favorite players who actually did get to Baltimore, so hopefully I'll be able to see him do well, just not against my Yankees. Taylor Ward was pretty much the entire offense in LA. Those are the Angels because Mike Trout was no longer Mike Trout. Ohtani's gone, and Zach Neto can't do it all. So I'm hoping that he can find his footing and hit above 228 because he had 36 home runs last year and 100+ RBIs. Need that again, not against my Yankees, but because I've drafted him on several of my teams. They brought in a few pitchers who I think could be decent. They brought in Shane Baz, who did decently well in Tampa, but also got shelled a little bit. Chris Bassett, who is no longer that guy, so hopefully he gets shelled. And Ryan Helsley, who is known for blowing saves in St. Louis. So, yeah, I hope this goes well for the Yankees. They also brought in some other guys like Blaze Alexander, who I don't think should be starting above Jeremiah Jackson. They also looked at bringing in John Kinsey Noel, Mr. Christmas, who is probably going to be DH. I don't know if he's going to be outfield any. He can't play infield anywhere else other than first. So, yeah, he's probably going to be DH, and that's going to put Basallo somewhere else. Very risky transaction. They brought in Thairo Estrada because Westberg and Jackson Holiday who had some injuries. So Thairo Estrada, a guy that I kept a few years ago, I thought he was going to have a better season. Don't come at me. Anyway, he can play second and shortstop. Some of the guys that left, already going to put Felix Bautista on there because he is not going to be here for the season, or at least for the start of the season. And then, like we talked about in the trade last year, Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano. And they also traded Grayson Rodriguez straight up for our boy Taylor Ward. So he's also hurt for that Angels rotation already. So I think the Orioles made out better than that. As you get the fantasy assets, you definitely have to look at Ward. You have to look at Alonso. I'm saying go ahead and look at Westberg and Jackson Holiday, especially in dynasties, because they should or could get better, right? No brainer, Gunnar Henderson. I would say Adley Rutschman. He can't be that bad, right? Like, he's going to get better. We're going to get back to his playing days when he was in the home run derby, right, along with Gunnar Henderson. In deeper leagues, maybe we'll look at Dylan Beavers, Colton Cowser. Both of those guys might hopefully get on track. And then for pitching, I mean, I guess you have to look at Rogers, even though I do not think he's going to keep this up. I was thinking you have to look at Baz and definitely have to look at Bradish and then Ryan Helsley in that bullpen. As we get to the bold predictions, I think there's going to be some offense now in Camden Yards. Pete Alonso, Taylor Ward, and Gunnar Henderson both going to have 30 home runs and 90 RBIs each, because they could just be single home runs and no one on base. So that's why I'm limiting their RBIs from 100 to 90. And then I just think Trevor Rogers is going to fall off. I don't know how it is, but you cannot have another sub-2 ERA and a sub-1 whip. There's no way. I don't believe it. And that's going to do it for day 26. Tomorrow we get to talk about the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm looking forward to it because we are one day closer to talking about the Yankees. This is Jake Aiken. Thank you for sharing part of your day with me.